Yeah, hello and welcome back to ConWorxx 3, Spielworxx's own small, cozy, friendly online gaming convention. My name is Uli Blennemann and I now have the wonderful Aaron Haag as my guest. Welcome Aaron, how are you?
Hi, Uli. Hi, everybody else from around the world. I don't know where you all come from. I'm very well, despite the weather we have in Munich, which is very cold and which is very rainy at the moment.
Yeah, almost the same. Now we have a little bit of sunshine, but it rained for a long time. Actually, I now like rain a lot after this dry and hot summer. But yeah, sometimes it could be better on the weekend for sure. And hello, Hans. Hello, seeing you back here. And hello, Daniel. Hello to Brooklyn. And he's saying we've got rain in Brooklyn too. So yeah, you see rain everywhere. And of course, as usual, if you would like to comment, if you have questions, please put them in the chat window, and we will most likely Aaron will respond. For people who do not know you, Aaron, who is the person Aaron? What are you doing for a living? What did you design so far?
Okay. Yeah, I'm 69 years old, so probably by far the oldest in this stream now.
We are it's the same age range. I'm 69 as well, so yeah.
Okay. Born in Solingen, North Rhine-Westphalia. That is a small town close to Düsseldorf, where I actually studied or went to university and also lived for a while. Later we moved to Great Britain, to Reading, where I worked for an international company. And now since just about 40 years, we're living in Munich. I have 2 kids. I think that should do regarding my person. What I do for a living, you asked for what I do for a living. Actually, I'm retired with 69. I guess that is obvious.
You deserved it. You deserved it. More time for designing games, right?
Sorry, I didn't quite get
that. More time for designing games, right?
Exactly, yeah. Since I've retired, I spend quite some time on designing games. That is true. I started about 13 years ago when I thought, hey, why don't you design games by yourself? Because I was playing games since my early ages. Games like Monopoly. I guess everybody has played that as a kid. A very old game called Öl für uns alle. I don't know whether that actually ever was released in another country or an English version. So that I was actually playing games since an early age, and later here in Munich we formed a small gaming group, private gaming group called the West Park Gamers. When in 2001 or 2000 we actually started also a little web page, and we met regularly once a week playing all the new stuff, whatever was available in Essen. At that time I was in Essen every year, coming back with huge bags of games, which we then later on played throughout the year. On that webpage, we actually first started reviewing the games. Now, which the game page is still alive, but now we have reverted to actually only writing about our game evenings, like a session report.
Okay.
What have we played and what did we like and what did we not like so much about the games we played. Then in 2009 I started to design games, and the main reason for doing that was, first of all, I wanted to see how do you actually do that? What you need to do to design a game rather than just to play a game. When you play a game, you easily see, I don't like this, or this is not good. You think this is not good. And when you start designing a game, you suddenly, you see the whole thing from another angle, and you see how difficult certain things are, especially when you have an idea, have a small prototype, and start testing it with other people, and you get all sorts of responses which you don't appreciate, or which you don't like, but I appreciate a lot because that improves usually the game. I started to design what is called expert games played by people who play a lot of games, or Kennerspiel,
expert games,
this sort of thing. So more like strategy games. The reason there is I'm a big 18xx fanboy, so I like, not because of the theme railway, but because of the whole concept of these games. We played, I don't know how many games of 1830, which is my favorite, my personal favorite. And when I started designing games, at that time we had played a lot of games which I would call multiplayer solitaire.
Okay.
And this is something I don't like. Multiplayer solitaire is for me more like a puzzle. I could play this by myself, but there are other people around the table, and everybody is thinking. And I thought, hey, you should do something different. Get the players involved. Get a much more focus on what the game, what other players are actually doing, so that you don't have to think so much about what yourself are doing, but rather what is the other player doing, and what will be my reaction to this, and how can I form tactics or maybe even a strategy out of this, what I deduce when I see the other players playing the game.
And
so these, of course, are expert games. Family games are usually much simpler and have elements of luck. I thought I would not design a game on the first games with elements of luck. And actually the first game, which was then published, if I can already jump to that.
Of course, please go on.
It was Yunnan in 2013, published by Argentum.
Which is now a defunct company.
It is defunct. We had 2 print runs, and the third one was already planned. And then I don't even know what exactly happened, but something personal happened to the owner of the company, and the company became defunct.
Yeah, and which is unfortunate. I was in regular contact with Argentum all the time, and then suddenly it stopped, and very strange. But there's one nice comment from Nick. Hello, Nick, by the way. Welcome back. And he's saying, Reading, the M4 says hi. So Nick is from the UK, obviously, and you will know what Nick means here.
The M4 is the motorway going right through Reading, or a little bit south of Reading.
But you already hinted on this, Aaron. For today's talk, Yunnan 2nd edition now is the topic, because this game will be published by Spielworxx in mid next year. But maybe Aaron, you can start by mentioning some of the details, what makes Yunnan special, or what is the engine of Yunnan 1st edition.
As I already mentioned, my goal of this first game was to have, actually not the goal of the first game only, but also of other games which are already being published. One is Loot Island, I didn't mention that, published by What's Your Game, and others which are still in the works, was to involve the people, to have a very interactive game, not like a party game interactive, but interactive in involving people, the players. And as I mentioned already, no elements of chance or luck in the game, so no dice, no cards. So overall, the idea was to have a game where players also, when one player, it is one player's turn, that the other players are involved, watching and maybe even reacting to what they see, and that means whatever a player is doing needs to be highly dependent on what the other players are doing. I came up with the idea to start with a bidding phase. I know probably some of the viewers already say, "Oh God,
bidding right at the start." No.
I don't like auction games very much, so I thought, well, let's make a bidding game which is slightly different. There are a lot of bidding games which are in some aspects similar, but this bidding phase is there's no blind bidding. You bid on a progress in the game. You sort of progress in the game and improve your traders, your tea dynasty. Because that is the theme. You're delivering tea to the provinces in China, and you improve your assets by bidding on these improvements. And the bidding process is rather straightforward. You bid a certain amount of money which you want to pay, and either you bid on let's call it a secure space. That means you get the improvement and you pay that amount of money, or if you think it may be a good idea because other players are not really interested so much in that improvement at the moment, you bid a lower amount of money. There are fixed amounts of money in that game, and but there you can be outbid. So that is not a safe bidding space. So it is actually, for a strategy gamer, it is straightforward and obvious what to do. You can take a risk. You can say, no, I don't want to take a risk. I just pay a certain amount of money, which is higher. And for every improvement, there are 3 safe spaces. So it's not like in a worker placement game where you occupy one space and nobody else can have that improvement. And the feedback I got already during the testing phases was that this is a type of bidding auction process which also strategy gamers appreciate and like.
Absolutely. To interrupt you here briefly, Aaron, this is a part why I'm drawn to the game, why I'm drawn to Yunnan. Because I think it makes a lot of sense to repeat it here, what you said earlier, that first, it is very tense, but all players are involved all the time, not by doing stuff simultaneously, but you need to watch what the others are doing. But it's not a 20 minutes process, downtime. You do one action, one bidding at a time. And then, yes, you have the option, I'm not spending that much money, but I may be kicked out again, or I'm doing the safe thing, but maybe I'm overspending here to have some progress. It's a very nice, mechanically, actually pretty simple mechanic, but it's appreciated by strategy gamers. And Daniel is making a comment here. Daniel, the Brute from Brooklyn, is saying, like the buy it now option on eBay. Maybe yes, maybe no. Yeah, something like that. Maybe we can steal it for the game, Daniel. It's not really fitting the theme. But I interrupted you, Aaron. But I like this aspect of the game a lot.
That bidding phase is actually only one phase in the game. It is important, but it's actually not the long part or the most involved part in the game. There's a travel phase in the game, which is really the strategic, tactical aspect of the game. That is where your traders move from Yunnan, or better, the city of Pu'er in Yunnan, to the provinces to sell tea. And the provinces, you have to have certain improvements to move further away from Yunnan, and you have to have a certain expertise, influence, it's called in the game. Maybe we change that, I don't know. Influence is in the game, and if you have a high influence, you have the possibility to, I wouldn't say rule a province, but you can displace other traders in that province of other players. So there is the tactical decision: who do I displace? Do I displace at all? Do I go for influence? Don't I go for influence? How far do I want to travel at all? You don't need to go to the highest or furthest away provinces to win the game. But the further you are away from Yunnan, the better your revenue is you get for your tea. Rather late in the game, I decided to have an additional small mechanic, and that is, we noticed during the test that if you have a high influence, there is no counterbalance for that high influence. So we had to tune that down a little bit by introducing the province inspector, as it is called in the English version. And the province inspector goes to the highest province, or to the province which yields the overall highest revenue for all tea sold, and kicks out the trader with the highest influence. So it's not that you just have to watch what your fellow gamers are doing in terms of, are they of a high influence and will kick me out, but even if I have a high influence or higher influences or the other players, I may still be kicked out by the province inspector. And that gives the game actually a quite nice balance between what are players doing, and then there is this damn province inspector which comes along at the end of the travel phase.
But when we talked earlier, you mentioned, and I will leave it at this for this moment. You mentioned Yunnan is a race, and you have to find the right moment to get out of the slipstream and finish first. So why, in a couple of sentences, why is Yunnan a race game in your opinion?
As with many other games, you win Yunnan by having the most victory points. However, I use a mechanism there, which is a game mechanism there, which is already known from other games. You earn money by selling tea, and it's your choice of how much money you then exchange into victory points at the end of the game. And there's a quite an interesting tipping point in that game, that at the beginning of the game, of course, you will need a lot of money to get the improvements.
Yes.
But then there comes a point when you say, okay, it might just be the situation that I have enough improvements to outrun the other players. And now I'm going for victory points. And all the income I generate per round, there are about 6 to 7 to sometimes 8 rounds per game, then all the money is converted into victory points. And that is the race. Who has the best starting position at the moment this tipping point occurs, when the first player actually goes to exchange a lot of money into victory points.
Yeah, and I totally agree on that. In my opinion, Yunnan is a race game, and it also tells you, the viewers, that Aaron is a very good designer, because race games are very difficult. I even mentioned this earlier today, are very difficult to design well, because this tipping point, if it's too obvious, too early, too late, then it's not a real choice. And and it's really well done in Yunnan. Daniel is commenting, reminds him of Princess of Florence. Yeah, there is also an exchange of money victory points, I think so. And there are certainly other games as well. But in Yunnan, it's very well done. So Yunnan published, I think, in 2013.
Correct. Yeah.
German company, I think 2 printings, as you said. A third one was prepared, never released. But if I'm not mistaken, this game was never released officially in English language, right?
There was a multi-language.
Or by Argentum, yeah, a multi-language.
There were English rules available. I must admit, I don't know exactly which versions they produced. So
yeah. And Nick is asking, as someone who owns and really enjoys Yunnan, with the new version of the game will be the only way to enjoy the changes, or will there be a conversion kit? Nick, there won't be any conversion kits because we now come to the 2nd edition, to the changes, and I already did so briefly to show some of the graphics. So yeah, and Nick is confirming that he has an English language edition here. But getting back to you, Aaron, what are the changes in the 2nd edition?
Yeah, there are quite a number of changes, although the overall aspect, the overall feeling of the game
is the same.
Remains the same.
Yeah.
There are no changes there. One important change I did was I improved the balancing. I have one game group actually in southern Tyrolia who like the game very much, and I had a lot of discussions with them about the game, and they came up with a strategy to win if you have an experienced player playing not so experienced other players, which in my opinion was far too simple. So I changed that, and it was actually an easy change, that now the income or the revenue of the tea traders that remain in Puer is now lowered.
Yeah.
Because you could actually just camp your traders in Puer and let the others go to the provinces, and if they don't know really what they're doing, you could win the game, and that destroys the fun for everybody. Yeah. So, and that was a simple change. Another balance change is that now the position of the horse gets victory points. It didn't get victory points before, now it gets victory points. That was also there to improve or to make it more attractive to go to the higher provinces rather than stay low.
For people who do not know, you can only do stuff in provinces where your horse has already reached. And at the start, it's the lowest province, and you move it up so it gets more attractive to be more active in the game with your horse. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. A bit of streamlining has occurred. The bank, which was actually introduced rather late in the game in 2012, I never liked the aspect very much that we had two bank payouts, one for the first player to go to the bank and one for the second, because it really doesn't matter, and it punishes the second guy going to the bank. So I did away with that, and it works a lot better. It is, I would call it a streamlining rather than an improvement in the aspect of you can now follow a different strategy or tactic. Streamlining, you don't have to think so much. Do I go now, or do I risk that somebody else goes to the bank? There are 2 bank spaces, you can go to the bank. If you don't want to trade with your trader, you go to the bank. I should mention that to the people who don't who don't know the game. You go to the bank and you receive money, a small amount of money,
but still
some money.
Yeah.
Yeah. What I also did was we had a giveaway, a mini expansion. I think that was on the second year, so it must be 2014 in Essen. We had a small giveaway which I designed that you could block bridges across gorges. There is one possibility to use a side road in this game rather than the main road, and you have to build a bridge first to use that road. And that mini expansion is the Diamu temple, which is the weather god, I think, Diamu, and that allows one player who successfully bids on that temple to block one bridge or one gorge, and all bridges across that gorge are blocked for one round, which brings an additional nice aspect to the game, an additional tactical decision you have to make. Do you go for that temple or don't you go? It's an easy change. It worked. It was tested a lot, and it's now part of the main game. And most importantly is the change of the two-player rule. The two-player rule, I hope I can say that was introduced, I think, two weeks before we started the print run of the rules, when somebody of that publisher said, hey, we need a two-player rule. And I said, I never designed it for two players, so come on, how should that work? And the decision was, if there are two players, every player plays two colors. And the income is just joined. It's the simplest possible way, but that was also because it was just 2 weeks' time we had. It was for me the only possible way to go, unless it would probably destroy the game. I was really afraid of doing something very silly and not realizing it. So, and that two-player role was never liked by people. I got so many negative responses. And now with the opportunity to have a second release of the game, I took the chance to design a new player rule, which introduces a third player, which is controlled by automat cards.
Yeah, and this, sorry to interrupt, and this works really, really well. So it is liked by testers, and it's pretty simple to implement. It's not a complex one. Yeah.
And also the handling is quite straightforward and simple.
Yeah.
So what else is there? The pro version of the rules has been changed. I introduced also a mini expansion, which is the Tunigong Shrine, now as a standard rule for the pro game, and we're currently discussing whether we should use another expansion which has never been released. That's the Guards expansion in that pro rule as well. We'll see how that works out. And finally, and I'm just looking at the time, I have one more minute, I think. The rule book. There was also a lot, when I look at Board Game Geek, there were so many questions about the rules. I wrote a clarification. The rules are not bad in the respect that there is something wrong, but the description of the game aspects and what is allowed and what is not allowed is not so well done that players could always play the game correctly, at least the first few times. So there were so many questions, and I'm still working on the rules to incorporate all the answers to these questions and have a much better rule book for this game.
Yeah, but actually the latest rules already that you sent, that we were testing, is already in great shape, and there are quite a few comments here in the meantime. And Daniel, I agree with you. He's saying shoehorning a two-player variant into a game that wasn't designed for it for its kind is the worst. And you like the new two-player version because it makes sense. It's simple, doesn't add a ton of new components to it. So this is really a big improvement. And Hans had mentioned, yeah, what about the promos? Aaron already answered this question. There, yeah, will be incorporated.
Exactly.
I tend to have the guards included. We will discuss this. And getting back to you, Nick, when you said, well, I like Yunnan First Edition, I'm never one of the people who's saying, buy the new game, buy the new game, buy the new game. If you are happy with the first edition, stay with it. Maybe you get a chance to play the second edition version, and then you can see if this warrants a new game purchase. I think if you like the new one, the old one, the first edition, you love the new one. If you didn't like the first one, probably the new edition won't convert you into a Yunnan lover. It is what it is. Player aids, Hans is saying, can also help a lot. Yeah, we'll see that we have the various options on short sheets. Nick asked, when will be the new rules available to view? I'd say April should be available for people to take a closer look. And this leads me to some, and I already put them up briefly, to some of the graphics. So we are using David Schneider from Austria here as a graphics artist, and of course this is all draft quality. It's not that this has been already done, and you see some details from the board. This is the victory points and influence line over here. This is a larger area of the board, so it's completely redone. I'm not saying that the graphics of the first edition were bad, they weren't. But I think the new one is a huge improvement in graphics, and even if we would have liked to use the first edition graphics, we couldn't. It's different company owning it and all this stuff, but we need to incorporate other elements as well and have lots of changes on the board too. Yeah, and the game Yunnan, our plan is to have the game available for pre-ordering. We are not really sure how we do this at this moment, but for pre-ordering in mid-2023, so mid-next year. And we'd be very delighted if you take a look at this project, because complexity is fairly low. It's an interesting design to my mind, and it's a wonderful gaming experience because the game is pretty special. It's not like 100 other Euro type games. And yeah, with this, thank you all for the view. Thank you all to the viewers for this, and thank you especially, Aaron, for taking your time on a Saturday. But you said it's raining, so anyway, you have lots of time to being here. And for all the others, I'm closing the stream I will be back in 10 minutes, in 11 minutes, and my guest is Ignacy of Portal Games, and we will talk about his experiences of this year, conventions, and of course about all the new Portal games. So I'd be delighted if you come back. I will close the stream. You need to reconnect in about 10 minutes. Thank you all very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.